Hello and welcome back to another episode of Football. I'm your host as always, Jerry, accompanied by Tomas. Tomas, how are you doing on this Thursday afternoon? We got a lot of Selección Mexicana talked and we got to catch up with that. But before we get into it, how are you doing, bro?
Doing just fine, bro. How about you?
Good, good. Obviously, we saw Javier El Vasco Aguirre. He is now officially the head coach, as we already mentioned, and we've been talking about for the past 2 or 3 weeks now. But now they finally presented him. They presented Rafa Marquez. They put the jackets over him. They took their pictures. They had the press conference with the project towards 2026 and 2030, which is the main project that they had with Jaime Lozano that we never saw realized. And there was obviously a lot of backlash there. Um, but before we get into everything, guys, make sure to follow Charla Football on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all social media platforms. Make sure to check out our YouTube and Spotify. Support your small creators because together we're gonna make it big. But yeah, a project from 2026 to 2030. Obviously, that's specifically for Rafa Marquez, and then from right now to 2026 is all Javier El Vasco Aguirre. So I mean, there's a lot of speculation of what's going to happen, a lot of controversy, a lot of just fright and I guess confusion in general, but also I think a little bit of hope. And I think that happens with every Mexican national team coach when they come in. There's always that little bit of hope that something's going to change. But I think after watching the press conference myself, I mean, I'm a little hopeful just because I see Rafa Marquez and I see El Vasco and they seem genuine. They seem like I know that they care about their country. If not, I don't think Rafa Marquez would have came and I don't think El Vasco would have came either if they didn't feel like there was a serious project because they were in good spots themselves. They were in Europe, they were doing well. I'm sure El Vasco could have had another year or two at Mallorca if he wanted to. But they came here to Mexico because they know Mexico is struggling. They know that we have a World Cup in our backyard to play in just 2 years' time, and they got to get to work if they want to do it. So they came as fast as they could, and I mean, I guess we're going to see what's going to happen in the future. But we're going to talk about some of the things that really stood out to us in the press conference, and then obviously things to look forward to, like the friendlies, and obviously the most important one is the Copa Oro that's going to be coming around in 2025 because there's a lot of speculation about what's going to be going down in 2025. So, Tomas, how do you feel about what was said throughout the press conference? What are your feelings, your initial thoughts, and I mean, do you have any hope going forward now with the press conference and them being presented?
I have no hope. If we had a solid starting 11, maybe I would have hope, but we don't have that. We don't have anything to show for. We have no good players. We have no, well, maybe we'll have one or two good players, but that doesn't make a team, does it?
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I just feel no hope because now they're ensuring to look for the best Mexican talent all across the world instead of trying to develop it in the home country,
Hmm.
which yes, looking for the best Mexican talent across the world is a quick fix, but it only take you so far if you don't have a strong, how would I say, base. If you
Yeah,
don't have, I
development.
know
All right.
we've had strong youth teams. We have a strong youth team right now with the CONCACAF U20 team. They play very well. I've seen a couple of the games, and it's like now they're giving priority to foreign born players or to
Dual
just other
nats.
players that aren't going through the whole process.
Hmm.
And I get it. Yes, they're very good. Some of them are very talented, but we should still give priority to them for now because it is a quick fix. It'll help us have a stronger starting 11 faster, but we need to have a better development at home.
Yeah, that is, I think, the most important and I think the most crucial part about this whole project is that I don't think I really heard anyone mention is about the restructure of the league. I mean, besides the regla de menores that we talked about in the recent podcast, that they're introducing that obviously again, and I mean, hopefully within the coming years, we'll see a lot of players, younger players, benefit from it, and I think we've already seen a lot of benefit. Um, but they didn't really touch on that in this press conference, which was kind of weird to me, but I think they just mentioned it like once, but you would have thought that there'd be a little bit more talk about, incorporating more of the young players. If anything, there was more of that talk about, well, if they're playing good for their country. I mean, they're playing good for their club, whether they're 38. And I think El Vasco really what he said that he could be 49 years old, but if he's scoring goals como si fueran churros, then I'm gonna bring him. But I mean, I just don't want to hear that. I want to hear that we're gonna develop younger players. We're gonna look at all our younger players. I know Rafa or Javier kind of mentioned it when he said that Rafa Marquez has experience with the youth. So I don't know. Maybe there's just something that I'm missing, but I do hope that they do look at the developmental side because for
Yeah,
sure I think
so
that's an important part.
practically with that, I just heard that Memo Ochoa is going to start again and Raul Jimenez, which I'm not against Raul Jimenez, but then Henry Martin's going to be the next striker behind him. So it's over.
I don't know. I hope not. I think it all like what I trust about El Vasco's words this time around is that he seems very genuine about bringing in the best of Mexico, the best that they have to offer, especially because I'm sure they don't want to make a bad World Cup. I'm sure they don't want to embarrass themselves, because obviously that is going to stain both of their reputation as coaches, and it's ultimately going to stain Mexico as a footballing generation. I mean, what just 10 years ago we were considered powerhouses in our own backyard over here in CONCACAF, and now we're not even taking that seriously. And now if you look abroad, I mean, no one really takes us seriously. So I mean, we have to get back to our our CONCACAF great status for sure.
But it's not only just that; it's to be better. And El Vasco is not that. He's always made La Selección worse.
Hmm.
And I don't believe in him. And he just told you that it doesn't matter if he's 49, he's still going to bring him. Well, then that's just terrible. What does that tell you? He still hasn't learned. He's the same person. He's gonna fuck up again, and now at the cost of more players and more time with the Selección Mexicana and another World Cup, just like in 2002 and 2010.
Oh, well, speaking about those two World Cups, he did mention those in the initial. And there's an interview that they put out when they first announced him. I think it was like a few days ago. But he did mention his two mess ups. When in 2002, when he said that he changed his whole tactic because obviously they went down early in the first half, and then he changed everything. He changed his whole tactics, having not have without having a plan B or plan C or plan D or whatever. And he says that now he's like, I make sure even with my clubs that I always have a plan B, C, D. I for every situation that can occur, I've already practiced it, and I'm very certain about what I'm going to do next. And then what was weird about the 2010 mishap, where obviously he puts in Bofo Bautistas instead of, I think it was Carlos Vela that should have been starting,
Yeah,
and he didn't recognize that, but he did recognize the I think the day or two before where he came out in the press conference with his hat covering his eyes, and he didn't want to talk to the press. He was just very dry with the press, so he recognized that as his mistake, which was kind of weird. But I think it is just an overall symbol of that World Cup for sure. But like I said, he did recognize his mistakes, so I hope after some time off, like he's kind of understood where he's messed up, and he brings that experience and ultimately can provide, a turnaround. I think that's what he really needs right now, a turnaround with the Mexican people.
I don't believe him. I think um, he's just painting this beautiful picture, but the thing is that he's making it over cardboard, so it's soon gonna fall apart.
Hmm.
So it's just, for me, it's terrible. It's sad that we have to go through this once again. It's just terrible.
Do you feel like you have to see it to believe it, basically?
I don't know. Even the thing is, how would we be able to see it? He wins the Copa Oro. Woohoo! Or he makes
That's
it to the round of 16 alone.
part. That's it because we really don't have any competition until the World Cup. I mean, if they can bring in the selecciones that they want to bring in for the Copa Oro, the federations that they want to bring in for the Copa Oro, then that's a different story. And if we play the likes of Colombia, Uruguay, and whatnot, but we'll get into that a little bit more moving forward. But if they don't, I mean, if even then, if that's Copa Oro, I mean, there's no real competition until the World Cup because we're just gonna have glorified friendlies and we're gonna have the Nations League, but it's nothing. that is on the same stature of the World Cup, like this Copa America should have been for sure.
Right now, it just feels like they're trying to get back to where they used to be, which was like 10th, 11th in the world. But there's no real project to win a World Cup.
Mm-hmm. That's what we want as a nation as big as Mexico, with that breathe, live, and love football the way Mexico do. I mean, we deserve at least one World Cup, right? Out of
Yeah,
all the
there's no
habits
real.
of,
Their whole project is to better, but they already put a roof over themselves where it was like, oh, it's where we were before, and then what? Fall back to where you are right now.
mm-hmm.
It's
Why
like
can't
there's
we
no
do better
project.
than we were?
There's no project for a World Cup. There's no project to win a Copa America. There's no project to compete in more international tournaments. I don't know whether it's a, I don't know, AFCON invitee or a fucking Asian Cup. I don't care. Anything where you're instead of these fucking boring summers where you're playing the U.S. every 2 to 3 months. Why not play a fucking an Asian tournament? Why not play an AFCON tournament? Why not try to see what other styles in the world there are?
Mm-hmm. Put yourself in an uncomfortable situation, because over here, you're gonna have is comfort. All you're gonna have is comfort because you're
Exactly.
playing in your backyard in the States. You're playing in the backyard over here in Mexico, obviously,
I
but
hope
not
there's
even in
like
Mexico, because and even then, like the people are against them right now. It's just stop playing in the States, and maybe things will pan out differently for you. But let's just kind of switch the topics just a little bit. They did mention this idea of the Euro, of like a Euro tour for the youth players. I don't know if it was sub 18 or younger, but starting October, they're going to be going to the Netherlands and different parts of the world. So in Europe, and they're going to be facing club teams. I'm pretty sure the younger rankings as well, obviously, like PSV, Ajax, Feyenoord. So in those cases, I'm pretty sure Rafa Marquez would be somewhere in that mix. That way he can scope out new talents and maybe bring them in and to help develop them and try to bring them in for the 2026 World Cup, and obviously see them grow until the 2030 World Cup.
yeah, I mean
I like the idea.
that's
It's
a
just
good
about
idea.
right.
It's that is a really good idea. It proves that they want to do something, but I don't think 1 week of playing the best teams in Netherlands is going to be enough. So
Yeah. No, this is going to be something that's going to recur, I think, every month starting October. I don't know for how long, but I did see they posted a timeline in October, November, December. They did have like 3 games in about a 3 week or 2 week span that they're going to be playing either club teams or other national teams, depending on who's available, obviously.
yeah, I mean the goal really has to be to develop our youth, get back to winning World Cups in the U17 and U20 divisions. At least start there. That way we get a lot of talented players who will be able and will be prepared to make that jump to a European club, that jump to even if it's a League Two or a League Three club. It's just we need these players in Europe to be able to develop with the best coaching. That's really
Mhm.
what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah, because they're not gonna find it right here in Mexico, because we're not even developing top level coaches, because we're always resorting to the same old El Vasco anyways. But now, we kind of already touched on it, but the Copa Oro, that's gonna happen next year, I believe. So it is gonna be a little difficult, because I believe it's gonna be around the same time that around the Mundial de Clubes, so the Club World Cup. So we're gonna see how things pan out, because obviously the talk is right now is that CONCACAF are trying to bring in 2 teams from every federation, making it almost like a little World Cup, a mini World Cup. So we're gonna have the likes of like Senegal and Egypt from AFCON, which are 2 of the best African teams. And then we're gonna have, I think, from the UEFA Federation, we're gonna see the likes of, and they're speaking Spain and France, or Spain and somebody else.
France and Spain,
France and Spain. And then who are I think Japan and
South Korea,
South Korea. I don't know. Am I missing anybody else?
so Japan, South Korea, France, Spain, Uruguay, and Colombia,
Uruguay, Colombia from CONMEBOL. So of course.
and then
So 2 from almost every federation. I believe the only one they're missing is
Oceania.
Oceania. Yeah, like New Zealand and Australia, which I don't think they would, but I don't see why not. If you're inviting everybody, you might as well invite everybody. But
Yeah,
I think it's a good idea, because then you kind of get a little taste of the World Cup before the World Cup, a little bit after the Copa America as well. Maybe you can help restore a little bit of the mess that went down, especially with the final. But I think it would be a good idea for CONCACAF because I think the teams like Canada, USA, Mexico, they definitely need a boost in competition because you're not going to get that same competitiveness out of the players playing the likes of Nicaragua, Guinea, freaking Honduras, El Salvador. Like you're not going to get that same competitiveness versus playing the likes of Spain, France, Colombia, Uruguay, for example.
Yeah.
Hopefully it goes down. And I know they're in talks with it. The money is obviously a big part, and I don't think it would be an issue. It just is a contractual thing that they obviously have to figure out. So hopefully it's something they can figure out and we can see happen because that's honestly the only competition we're gonna have.
Yeah, I mean, the Copa America was supposed to be like a preview to the World Cup, and I mean, the only nation that actually held their head high was Canada. So now they want to do this in a Gold Cup, which I don't see a problem with. But are these teams really going to risk their A squad? A year before the World Cup?
That's the big if or what if, and I honestly I doubt it, bro. Just because, like I said, around the same time, I believe there's going to be the Club World Cup is going to be going down, so most of the A-list players are going to be with their clubs because those clubs are going to want to win the Club World Cup.
Yeah. So
So
it's that, and then.
doubtful.
But even though that, I do prefer a B side France squad than an A side Equatorial New Guinea or Trinidad and Tobago, whatever.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
So I do prefer that. So it's not that big of a deal. But then again, it's like I just wish it was more of an important tournament where everybody wants to win it.
Mm-hmm.
Because no other CONCACAF nation than Mexico, the U.S., Canada, and Costa Rica have won it. And it's like, I just wish it were more important where people would actually send their A squad. Colombia has tried to win it. Brazil has tried to win it. Both of them have lost in the final. Paraguay and Bolivia have both lost in the group stages, as well as Venezuela. But anyways, it's just it's a step towards progress, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't win it.
Yeah. Hopefully they can get the win. If this obviously goes down, the Copa Oro is going to happen no matter what. But hopefully, with all the federations involved, that'd be awesome to see. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about is something that obviously we all think about is the fact that in the selección they always try to put their hand the federation always try to put their hands in the mix, basically. Whether telling them to bring this player, don't bring this player, as especially as we saw with all the likes of Chucky Lozano, Henry Martin, Jesus Gallardo, Raul Jimenez. Those guys were not involved whatsoever, whether that's a call by Jimmy or by the federation. Now that's a different topic, but a lot of people have that skepticism about whether Javier Aguirre is going to let that happen. And they did ask him about him. I believe the guys at TUDN did ask him about it. And he did say que a mí no me van a imponer jugadores. So saying that basically they're not gonna mess around with the squad because whatever players that he chooses or whatever players he chooses is going to be because he likes them or because Rafa likes them or his team overall likes them. So I think
The
that's a
thing,
good.
the thing with that is that sounds kind of hypocritical because the ones who were asking were TUDN. Yeah, 3/4 of the federation either have worked or currently work for TUDN or Grupo Orlegui. So it's just like it sounds staged.
Mhm.
It sounds like to erase doubts from the aficionados. Like, oh, now they're accepting it. Okay, so it must have been true, to the end. It probably doesn't have their hands in the federation. It sounds kind of like a pre-imposed question that he has to answer saying, no, these are all my choices, when in reality they may not all be his choices.
That was a lot. I mean, honestly, when I was watching the press conference, I was thinking about that a lot. I felt like I was wondering what was pre-imposed or what was a question that was asked that either somebody had to ask, or when I think when people pick the
Yeah, we're staged kind of.
yeah, yeah, when like the director picks whoever gets to ask a question, like they already knew in advance who they were going to pick. So I mean, that's kind of how it felt like. But then a lot of journalists started asking questions, and then they did start asking heavy hitting questions. So that's where I was like, okay, maybe not. But yeah, I think that through the internet one was obviously it's a little sketchy. It's like admitting yourself. That way you look less less guilty. Like,
Yeah,
are you gonna get caught red handed type of thing?
yeah. So it's just like I don't like the sound of that question. I would have preferred him say it without anybody asking him. And then the thing is also with Javier Aguirre, I don't think you have to impose players on him for him to fuck up. I feel like he fucks up on his own using his old way of thinking, which
Mhm.
sometimes works. But I mean, a broken clock is right twice of the day. So
I mean, hopefully, like I said, hopefully he learned from his mistakes and we see a genuine change. Obviously, he was doing things well in Mallorca, reaching a Copa del Rey final. And now he has the likes of more younger coaches along his side, like Tony Amor and Rafa Marquez, as well as his other guys from Mallorca. So we'll see what kind of experience they bring along and what they can teach him. And I just hope that he's open minded, like he said he is. He's going to be open minded. So that's what we want to see. That's what we want to hear. I think he gave us exactly what we want to see and what we want to hear. But now it's just all about the results and the work. We want to see that effort being put in, and we want to see we want me ultimately we just want to see a successful World Cup campaign.
yeah, I mean I know that's what I want to see. I want to see them. The expectations have to remain the same. They have to win this Gold Cup, whether it's France or I don't know, or France or Ghana playing in it. Whether it's the finals versus the U.S. or versus Spain, they have to win this Gold Cup because
Mhm.
it's on their home field. There's no real excuse for them to lose it. Yes, Spain is a powerhouse. Yes, respect to them, but you can win a game by not scoring. So just don't get scored on. And I feel like at home you can't get scored on, or you shouldn't be able to get scored on, or just the love that you have for your country or for yourself, as some players have had in the past.
That has to show.
It has to show. Yeah, it has to come out. It has to
Mhm.
be able to say maybe they're better than us. Maybe they're gonna beat us tactically. Maybe they're gonna beat us, but they're not gonna beat us here.
Mhm.
They can pass, they can move, they can touch all they want, but they're not gonna score.
I think that's like the biggest takeaway that I saw and that I heard from El Vasco is that if you're gonna play for my team, you have to love your country. Like, you have to want to play for La Selección. You cannot be scared. You have to be you have to have pride. You have to be proud to be Mexican. You have to genuinely love the country that you're playing for and want to be here. And there's this new rule or project that's part of it is called Project 365, I think, or something like that, where if you're a national team player, you are consistently a national team player. So if you've been called up once, and obviously you leave a good impression, you're always going to be called up. Or obviously, if you're playing well, but you also have to show that. Like, I mean, we see the likes in the top leagues, like Griezmann and Mbappe, who we're not wondering whether they're going to get called up in the next convocatoria. Like, they are going to get called up because they are national team players, and they are an example of what it takes to play for the French national team. We need those kind of players too. We don't need players that in one convocatoria they'll show up, and then the next one it's another group of players, and the next one it's another group of players, and then so and so come back because we don't have anybody else. It's like, no, we need a consistent group of players that want to play and that are going to die for Mexico, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean I understand that. It's just I just have to see the players that he's bringing, because if he's bringing back Memo Ochoa and he's calling him one of the Project 365, and as well as Henry Martin, then I'm just saying this is the same bullshit that I could have seen with fucking Tata Martino and Diego Coca.
Yeah. So we'll see what kind of changes are going to be going on within the next few weeks, months, and years. Obviously, we'll keep you guys updated with everything as it comes out. But obviously, we're gonna have more content coming out. I mean, I don't know if Tomas, if you want to do some Olympic content. I know the quarterfinals is coming up, tomorrow. Then we got semifinals and finals. Very interesting matchups. So we can't talk about that. Let us know, guys. Um, we also got transfer news, rumors that we can talk about before the season start. We have about like 2 to 3 weeks before most of the big leagues start going on, so we can also get a pod in there as well. But yeah, make sure you guys follow Charla Football. Make sure you guys follow on our personal accounts as well. Support your small creators because together we're gonna make it big. And we'll see you guys on the next one.